I want to focus on Tony for this finale. I want to start off with his therapy session. Tony starts by talking about his dream about his coach. I do want to focus on how he brings it up to Melfi. He says that his coach thought that he was special. She's surprised because it sounds like a good thing. Then he mentions how AJ's coach isn't starting him anymore. When Melfi brings up Tony B, this upsets Tony. Reiterate what Tony's dream meant, right? It was two things. It was one, him realizing that he was failing everyone around him, and number two, that in all of this failure, all he can do is run back to Carmela. Carmela and Tony made a deal to get back together. It was not out of love. But because of Tony B, he can't tell Melfi what his dream really meant. Melfi also says that Tony only feels guilt and shame from Tony B. She also says that Tony's going into high sentimentality mode. And Tony takes offense to this. What I want to mention about this is that this could be seen as Melfi telling Tony to man up, but all she's telling him is to own his emotions. And all he's going to do is blame himself and try to avoid accountability. Going back to this scene earlier in the episode, he tells all the people in the family he would offer all of them the same protection he's offering Tony B and Christopher right now. And all of them know it's bullshit. Everyone blames Tony for not handling Tony B earlier and getting them into the war. I also want to mention the scene he has with Sil. He points out that Tony just has a problem with authority, which isn't wrong, but what's happening is Tony is too emotional to make any rational decisions as their boss. Sil points out a week prior he knew what he had to do with Tony B, but he let his emotions get to him first. This is the exact same conversation he has with Melfi, but because he's with Sil, he has to hide his own emotions. By the end of his therapy session, he just blames himself and feels shame again. Melfi points out that Tony probably also wanted to hear from AJ's coach that he thinks AJ is special, but Tony doesn't know how to communicate that to his son or even motivate him. When Tony mentions that AJ's coach isn't starting him anymore, he says it's because he's focusing more on academics now. The scene right after his therapy session is him throwing a party and making money off of selling beer. Also, when he watches his friend get into a fight, all he does is smile. Tony is lying about his son to Melfi and failing him as a father. Later, Tony goes to confront Polly and sees this painting of him and Pyomai together. This painting is what makes Tony realize he needs to put his emotions away and get rid of Tony B. Get this beat of him staring at the painting sad and then getting cold and angry. Now, I do want to jump to the end of the episode. After he runs away from Johnny Sack's house, he comes back through the woods. This is meant to show you that Tony's just like the bareback from episode 1 of the season. It's also shown in episode 9 when Carmela's calling all the lawyers up to try to find one for their divorce. Tony had already called all of them up. This is all showing you how much of an animal he's become this season. Melfi is trying everything she can to get Tony to understand and feel his own emotions, but everything he does in the mob is keeping him from that. Sil's comment about authority, Tony killed Tony B on his own terms. He is still forcing Johnny Sack to be the one to pacify Phil. So if Phil makes a move, it's now Johnny's fault. But what's making Tony become an animal is his lifestyle. Reasons why he can't confront his emotions is because they make him vulnerable as a boss and are in fact hurting him in his decisions. Again, they were childhood friends. This was a way of Tony preserving part of his childhood innocence. And now that it's gone, he's fully become an animal. I love to talk about this episode more in the comments. Thank you.